What is going on, everybody? This is Coach Coleman, Jesse Coleman, and you're checking into another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast, where we help you tap into your full potential. And this week, my guest, this is somebody that she doesn't even know this, but this is somebody that when I first stepped into the to the QL world, and for you all that's listened for a while, I've talked about Quantum Leap QL and KW Next Gen, and back then it was KWKC. And she was somebody that I looked up to when I first stepped into that world of just seeing what she was doing and how she was making an impact. A big part of that too was seeing somebody that looked like me, that had a voice like me and was wanting to impact the next generation. And this is probably the first time she's heard that. And I'm like, you know what other time to do that than now? It's just to let her know that she played a big impact on me becoming a QL instructor and me, wanting to give back more and providing the information that we were blessed to get to, from the QL material and give that back to the next generation. And without further ado, I'm going to bring her to the stage, Chase Sloan. Chase, what is going on?
What's going on, Coach? Thank you so much, just for those kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, I am very big on giving people their flowers, and I am very big on doing it in the public eye. Like it's one thing for me to see somebody, and I mean I'll do it. Like I'll pull them to the side and say, "Hey, you inspire me. You do this and that." But I want to always shout it from the mountaintop, because what I realize is that there may be somebody else that needs that type of push. And then when you're able to say, like, hey, this person motivated me, this person did A, B, C, and D, and I took that what I'm doing from that, it gives other people to be like, okay, let me be more open to seeing what other people are doing and embracing, the path that they're blazing. So I just wanted to make sure that I do that all the time, because again, I just love giving people their flowers. Like that's what I love to do. Right.
I appreciate that, and it one just helps us kind of remember what we do it for, and being able to leave breadcrumbs, and it really anchors into the idea that no one succeeds alone. And so every time we're able to go back and look at giants or any person that's influenced our path, I think it just is a testament to the multiplicity of what we see. So that's why I'm excited, because to know that and then see your impact, to be a domino somewhere in that sequence is inspiring. So thank you.
And you know what? This is a quick segue into going into shifting to this topic. What what was it about? What was there a certain situation, or what was it that make you get to that point of where you are with, like, you love to give back and impact people? Like I see you talk about it so much, and I see you do it. That's the thing I want people to that's listening. Like, you are not somebody that's just saying it, you are actually putting the action behind it. So what was that got you into that mode of, what, I have to impact as many people as I can?
My childhood, honestly, I grew up in Third Ward, Houston, Texas, and I talk about how pivotal that time was, just in adjusting and life as a middle schooler and all those things. And I was an athlete. I had a coach, and they had a mentorship program, and we were paired with the University of Houston's women basketball team. And that was really my first time experiencing a couple different worlds. One, the community that you find in being an athlete, and then two, the community that you find in having mentors. And so when I got to college, I knew that I always wanted to be able to be that mentor. So just like you said, we all have these giants and these people that play a role in our lives. And you're like, man, when I get an opportunity, that's what I want to be able to do, because it was such a pivotal time in my life. And so when I got into business, and just going through the roads of figuring out just what it is that you desire to do in life, when I got into real estate, and it was always my intention to give back. I had new awareness on wealth building. I had new awareness on just personal development and leadership. And so I wanted to go back to that eighth grade student that had so many people pouring into me. And it just so, I always say, when passion and profession align, when KWKC came around, Quantum Leap came around, it was like perfect alignment for full circle. And that's really what it's just been about. It's just been about like, hey, this worked for me, and why should I rob others? It's like just kind of giving where you live and keeping that going.
And I tell people that a lot because I get a lot of people ask like, "Why are you always wanting to give and do?" And I'm like, "There's two parts to that. Like one part, I realized over time actually doing the podcast and a lot more teaching that I did. Like one part is more of a trauma thing, but we're not going to get into that part yet. But the other part is that there's has been so many people that poured into me, and I felt like, hey, I would be doing a disservice to this world if I don't do the same thing. Like the people that poured into us, the people that mentored, the people that showed up for us, they didn't have to do that. And I always
Mhm.
felt like if they were willing to do that for us and we hold to our chest what we learned and knowing we can impact somebody else's lives, I just feel like that is just selfish. So I'm just it's kind of the same way. Like people pouring into me, I want to pour into other people as well. Right?
It's a lot like sharing your faith. When I was in college, I was really active in church. And so we were really, fishers of men and going and sharing our faith and bringing people to church. And what I learned in that chapter of my life is that when you are passionate about something, you can't not talk about it.
Yes.
It's almost kind of a question that if you say you are passionate about this thing, why are you quiet? And so again, it just kind of funneled into a way that I was able to focus and harness that energy into the next generation, in regards to wealth building. Yet I think that givers give because it's a part of their DNA. And whether they want to or not, whether they're hurt by it or not, whether they're learning lessons on the way or failing forward or not, you cannot take that out of the core of who a person is if that's how they are wired to be.
It's so funny you say that because sometimes I get in my mood where I'm like, you know what? I am just disconnecting from everything. I'm not doing that. And then I'll see somebody post something or somebody call me, and I just get right back into that mood. Like, okay, let's talk about this. How can I help? What advice do you want? Do you just need me to listen? Like you said, it's no matter how we may try to pull away from being that type of person, you just always get right back into that. And it's like you say, it's just in our DNA. It's just how we are.
Yep,
Right?
absolutely. It's just who we are.
So you talked about a community and you know the community that you had from having the mentors and being a part of the college and things like that. What are some of the things that I want you to highlight of what you're doing for the community and giving back because you do a lot of amazing stuff. You have a lot of programs that you do. Let's talk a little bit about that and share that for the people that's listening.
So for me, it really got when I got clear about community, it's about going hyper local. And to be honest, it was really selfish. I was looking to build community for myself, and that was just because you know after the pandemic, I think that just my world, maybe others can relate, just got a little bit smaller, working from home and not having to go into the office as much. And so one of the things that I love and do love about sharing spaces is just the collaboration and meeting of minds that happen when you're around people. And I wasn't finding that as much. And even though we have technology and Zoom calls, sometimes there's still a barrier when there's a screen in front of it. And
Yeah.
so I look to find places that were meeting on a regular basis, that were aligned with my interests and not just my identity, which is something that I felt like was holding me back. I was looking to kind of go for the typical community, the expected community, versus spaces that were going to challenge me to run. And so what I did is that um, I'm really passionate about advancing Black homeownership, building Black wealth, and getting very um, clear and direct about that. And so what better way than to start at home, which was my community in Third Ward, and then through that, tapping back into my interests. So the arts, um, running. I joined a run club. I didn't consider myself a runner. However, I knew that I wasn't moving at home, and right. So that kind of goes back into even having the courage to join communities that are opposite of your strengths. And so that way you don't have to be the expert. I wanted to find spaces that um, I could be a participant and an audience member and not have to bring a wealth of knowledge. So when you tie that into just kind of, what does that look like in the programs that I offer, everything that I do is really centered around mental health, wellness, uh, wealth building, and strong communities. The mission of my life is to create spaces that restore the soul, inspire the mind, and fund the future. And so all of those things connect. Community is like the driving anchor in that, and I just go outside to make it happen.
Well, I want to unpack something you said real quick. I am very big on when I have guests on here is making sure the listeners take certain things that the guests say. And you said something that I don't want to go over people's head is that you said that you realized that you wanted to be in not the areas that people would expect you to be in, as far as like the rooms or the things. And a lot of people they miss that piece where it's like you have to get uncomfortable sometimes and you have to go somewhere that's not the norm of where you will go,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Put yourself in those rooms. And I've talked about this before, when we put those limited beliefs on ourselves where we that self-talk that we have where we say, you know what, I'm more comfortable being in this room or this environment, so that's the environment I'm going to go to. When we know for us to grow and to get to the next level, we need to put ourselves in that room that's not the typical room for us, or the room that is going to make us feel good because we feel like we got it together. So I don't want people to skip over that part you just said, because that is very, very critical for people to grow and be successful. Like, put yourself in a room that you're uncomfortable with, or you feel like I shouldn't be here. That's the perfect room you should be in, because that's going to force you to level up.
Something my sister often tells me is, don't be afraid to be seen trying. And one of the things that I had to get over is that you don't have to show up as the expert. I think a lot of times, just even like you said, with social media, podcasts, anything, there's this pressure to have it all figured out. I remember when I was in high school, I was meeting with the guidance counselor and we were choosing electives. And I think she asked me if I wanted to join a choir. And I was like, I can't sing. I'm not going to join the choir. And she was like, well, that's why you join, so they can teach you how to sing. And I think we miss those lessons in life, right? We don't want to join the real estate club because I don't know anything about real estate. I don't want to join the investors
Yes.
club. I don't have any investments. I don't want to, join this Toastmasters. I'm not a good speaker. And it's like, that's why you join. And so, and
Yes.
then what ends up happening, and my mom told me this, oh my gosh, it convicted me to my soul. I was in my 20s. She was like, stop rising to meet low expectations.
Ooh.
And I had come back from college and I just was, hanging out with my friends and doing what 20-year-olds do. And she just was like, I just thought you were going to be so much better than this, in the ways that mothers and love does it. And it just always stood out to me that, in order for you to raise the bar in your life, you're going to have to stretch. That's literally what that looks like.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
getting over that idea of being seen trying, I think that's what limits and caps a lot of our potential.
Yeah, and it makes me think about the exercise and the six personal perspectives, where you ask the people in the classroom, who in here can draw? Raise your hand. And majority of the class won't raise their hand. And the first thing they thought, they when they say who can draw, they think of who can draw good. And it's like, no, I didn't ask if you can draw good. I didn't ask if you were Picasso. I asked, can you draw? Everybody can draw. So it
Mhm.
just made me think about that, what you're saying of people don't do things because they like, oh, I don't know how, or I'm not good at it. Like, no, that's the point of doing something, is so you can learn how to do it, is so you can get better at it. So that made me think about that exercise when you shared that. And that is so real, that people will not do something because they don't know how to do it. And it's like, that's the reason why you do it, so you can learn.
Yeah. we tell ourselves no. As my sister would tell me that whenever I was thinking about applying for something or shooting a shot at something, and she was like, "Let them tell you no. Like, just show up with just just apply, just do it, just shoot the shot." And I think that mindset can carry us further than we think. Those qualifiers, you have
Yeah.
to ask yourself, who's putting the qualifier? Who said good? Who said professional? Who put whatever it is that you think is keeping you from an opportunity? Who said that? You?
Yeah.
Them? Chances are it wasn't them, right? And so you got to be able to, have the courage to let somebody else tell you no. Don't be your first no.
Yeah. It's funny you said that because I literally just had a situation happen. Um, I think it was last week or the week before last, and I was sharing some opportunities with some people that I really talked to, and I'm like, well, I really like this opportunity. I wanted this opportunity, but I know I can't get it. And they said the same thing. They're like, who told you you couldn't get it? And I'm sitting there like, damn, you're right. Nobody told me I couldn't get that opportunity. They were
Yeah.
like, so why are you putting that on yourself? And it's funny because that just happened to me where I put that on myself. Like, I can't get that. And it's like, nobody told you you can do that. You're stopping yourself from doing it. You're not even trying. So you're limiting yourself. Like you said, let them tell you no. Let them tell you no, you can't have this opportunity. Because one of the big things we notice is that regret is worse than trying and not doing it.
Yep. Yep. You're going to get evidence from that. And it's interesting because you said that. It made me think about, when we talk about inspiration, I think sometimes we allow ourselves to compare ourselves to what inspires us, as if
Yes.
that inspiration didn't have a journey in itself, right? And so we see these, I don't even want to say finished products, because chances are, if you talk to whatever inspires you, they'll tell you they're in the middle of a big failure right now, right? So you have to kind of keep that perspective. But a lot of times it's the comparison of what we think we're supposed to be and where we are. I coach a lot of young adults, and that seems to be the biggest challenge, is this invisible comparison metric of how they believe it's supposed to look. And I think
Yeah.
once you are able to really just transmute that energy and get over that obstacle in your mind, you just have radical confidence, right? You really start realizing that this is not a physical competition. This is about mindset, spiritual. Like, this has nothing to do with what you believe is standing in your way.
Yeah, and not even young adults. We see that with a lot of adults where they deal with that and they have that same type of thinking. And it makes me think about too. And I just had this thought where the comparison of people compare what somebody else their age or somebody else younger than them, or they, like you said, where they feel they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And I literally just had this thought, like, why do we do that where we look and compare ourselves to other people that we think have it together or have it where they're supposed to, what we're supposed to have, but we don't look at the people who went through the struggle and now they're able to, they at some point in their life they went through some things and they're able to get past that. Why don't we like try to look at that like, okay, this person went through hell, this person had everything fall apart and they were still able to come out of it. Let me use that as my motivation as opposed to, oh, this person got it all figured out and I'm older than them. And we pick what we want to hold on to when there's a whole nother option of like, if you need the motivation, look at Oprah Winfrey, look at Colonel Sanders. When you start thinking about people that didn't get to a certain place until they got to a certain age, like that should be the people that you should, if you're looking to pull motivation, you should pull it from them.
And I think also it's about, what are you conditioning your mind to identify with? And that's why I said, when I started looking to build community, I really had to, look at, am I just looking at identity? Like, hey, this a black woman like me, and so therefore I should be in common with all these things, or is this just, am I looking to build bonds over interest? And sometimes, to your point, you can look at the struggle and the trauma and the things, the hurdles that everybody went through, but everybody goes through that, right?
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
sometimes, it's like the law that says what you focus on expands. If you only focus on struggle, then you will only see your value if you struggle. And so, really being able to shift that and learn how to identify with ease and abundance, and you can relate to that too. I used to tell people Jesus died a whole death, and folks still don't believe that he was real. So, why do I have to relate to the lowest part of yourself to prove who I am, right? There's a God in you too. And so we can reach up. I say that a lot. Reach up in what you look to identify with and normalize that, because that's the only reason why fear exists, right? Is because
Yeah.
it's something that is foreign. Fear is foreign, right? And so we don't want to approach it because we haven't seen it. But if we normalize that, right? If you grow up around a bunch of orators, then you probably don't have a fear of speaking. And
Yeah.
so in the same ways, going into those environments that don't feel comfortable, that you may be the one that has no credibility, right? Like,
Yeah.
why am I even in this room? Right? I used to do that when I was just starting my career. I would go into these masterminds with top producers,
Yeah.
like let's mastermind on how to have $1 million day, like those type
Right.
of masterminds.
Yeah.
And I was still learning, like, how do I write this contract? And it's like, do you feel like you deserve to be in that conversation also?
Yeah.
I just think that we have to just get bolder and braver with identifying with greatness and treating that just as normal as trauma.
Yeah. And it goes to that quote, what they say, fortune favors the bold, or fortune favors the person that do. Like, you can frame it. And I tell people too, and I love you brought that up about when we get into certain environments where we feel like we shouldn't be there. And I tell people all the time, that's where you should want to be at. I do not want to be in a room where I am the top of the food chain.
Right.
I want to be in an environment where I am the lowest person on the totem pole, because we rise to our environment. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm in that environment, okay, I have work to do, and I'm getting ideas, I'm getting inspiration, I'm getting motivation. People in those rooms, they talk a different way, they respond a different way, they do things a different way. So now you're starting to adapt the way they operate to where they're having $1 million days. Now you're starting to see yourself going from 15,000 days, 20,000 days, 50,000, and you just start seeing a progression. It's
Yeah.
because the environment you're putting yourself in.
Yeah, you start solving for a different X. You're like, I didn't even consider that. I'm
Yes.
just, I remember I was sitting across from a colleague. We were doing an exercise, and it was like, right, I think where you want to be in 5 years. And so I wrote mine, he wrote his, and we read it to each other. And I'm listening to him, and I'm like, didn't even think. I'm like, let me see my pen. Let me go and write and add some of the, like, I started borrowing some of his goals. Like, that sounds good. And I think that's community. Community is the
Yes.
sharing of goals, right?
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way. I'm glad that you put that on my radar. I'm going to add that to my list. And so we can, get curious. And I think a lot of times we think that success is mastery. And I'm tempted to say that success is measured in your level of curiosity. And so if you're only putting yourself in rooms where you are the head authority and people are looking to you because you've mastered this thing, then like you said, you've stunted your growth. Nothing can pull you up. And so be curious. Go into the rooms where you are in complete confusion and know
Yeah.
that that is actually going to help you more than anything, that you've graduated from.
Yeah, it's that old quote. I love going to old quotes because it's so true. It's like, you are the sum of the people you're around. If you are in a room full of people that are high achievers, high thinkers, you're gonna start being the same way. Like, I put myself in rooms to where, hell, even my vocabulary has started going to certain levels. I'm like, shit, I didn't even know how to spell this word at one point. I didn't even know what it means. Now I know how to spell it. I know what it means. I know how to use it to in sentences. I know how to articulate what it means to people that don't know what it means. Just the whole broad picture of it just forces you to go to another level because it's that environment that you're in. And it just
I'm
made me think,
curious because we talk about the fear of stepping into those new rooms. But Jesse, did you ever have a fear? Was were you ever scared of leaving the old one? Like,
yeah,
did you ever feel? Because sometimes it might not even be the fear of going forward. It's kind of like the challenge of what you might be leaving behind.
yeah. And to that point, and I don't want to, I'm not minimizing anybody else or anything like that, but for us and where we come from, we deal with that a lot where we leave a certain environment, we leave a certain group of people, and we're expanding our horizons. And now that group starts to look at us differently. So we put ourselves, our own self, in a position of, well, I don't want them to look at me like that. So I'm going to fall back from trying to go into those other rooms because they're going to look at me differently. Right. So
Hmm.
that is a big part of it too, of not scared of where we're going. We're scared of what we're leaving behind, or how people that we may have to. I'm not going to say leave, but distance ourselves from how they're going to look and how they're going to feel.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think also just really, and I think when we talk about community, that's also just kind of where community doesn't always have to be about teaching, right? And so you
Yeah.
can inspire people, like you said, from a distance. I had no idea with the introduction that you made that I even had that impact. And so sometimes you can you can be accessible to a community, right? Like you don't have to completely isolate yourself. Like, oh, I'm way above that now. That's beneath me, or that's beyond me, or anything like that. You don't have to separate yourself, but you can still very much run towards your mission and know that the right people are watching you. I think we
Yes.
underestimate the amount of influence that we have if we can't directly time and predict the results of whatever it is that we're looking. It doesn't show up the way we think we are, so we think we're not having an impact. And then years later, someone shares that, no, actually, because of you, I actually started making these changes in my own life. I just didn't tell you about it until now.
Yeah, yeah, that is. I'm glad you highlighted that. So again, for you all that's listening, people may not say, but they're watching, right? And your impact on them, majority of the time, your impact on people is by how you operate, how you show up, and how you do things.
Hmm.
Because I've had people reach out to me like, man, bro, like we from the same place. Seeing what you're doing, like, man, that's really motivating. I love to see somebody from where we from doing the things you're doing. Like, keep up the good work. So to your
Hmm.
point, it's like just us showing up, us going into those rooms, and they're like, damn,
Hmm.
I didn't think it was possible for us to be in those type of rooms. But now you're in those type of rooms. Okay, that's showing me like I can do that. So I like
Yeah.
that you just you highlighted that, because again, it's if we show up a certain way, if we do a certain thing, now the people are seeing that because people watch, we know that.
Mhm.
And now they're making changes because they see what we're doing.
Yeah, I remember at a point in my career, I was like, I want to be the Robin Hood of wealth. I knew that I was being exposed to conversations that we just didn't have. And with what I do, I really kind of reverse engineer a lot. And so after having so many conversations and really solving for, the wealth gap and Black home ownership, and really kind of reverse engineering, like, where is the crux? Where are we falling short? And a lot of it wasn't just so much the information, because the information is everywhere, right? But it's
Yeah.
the interpretation. It was being able to connect it in a way to people are open to receiving what it is that you have to say. And so I think sometimes we underestimate, like you said, our voice in our ministry, from being able to take some concept that they may be talking about in whatever room, and then kind of Rubik's cubing it in a way to where it actually meets people where they are. And that's why I believe it's so important for, people like you, people like me, um, you know, Black people of color, to just talk how we talk. Just talk
Yeah.
how we talk, so that way people don't feel separated. And I think that's the biggest opportunity, is being able to, you know, go get the information and bring it back in a way that just, simplifies it and makes it relatable, so it's not so intimidating if it is the first time that you're hearing something.
Yeah, and people are more drawn to authentic. They people can smell BS from a mile away. Like, especially nowadays, people can sense the smell when it's BS. So when you are your authentic self, people accept that more. And that's something I've learned over the past year and a half, of the opportunities I've had of going to different places and teaching and stuff like that, where it's a total different um dynamics. I'll say it that way. It's a different dynamics, but I stay true to myself. And they come up to me like, I just love how you present. I love how you share the information, like you said. And it's like, okay, I don't have to try to talk like somebody else or do things like other people. Like, no, be my authentic self. And people realize, okay, he's real. He's not trying to BS us, and they're more receptive and open to it.
Absolutely. They say they feel seen. I say my superpower is that I see the people in front of me. I connect very well with people in front of me. I think of always just, a coach once told me, he's like, you have a high EQ. And as something that, I was reading, and it says sometimes the things that come natural to you don't to others. So I never really thought much of that in regards to being able to connect with a person or an audience or a room. And you start to realize like what your gifts are, and leaning into them instead of shrinking because maybe you feel like I should be showing up this type of way.
Yeah, that is so true. And people appreciate you when you show up as yourself.
Mhm.
Especially in our industry, right? Like, you have people that show up to classes and teach, and they talk down to people as if they're better than them. Like, well,
Yeah.
I'm the one in front of the class, so blah blah blah. And like, no, like you said, you have to know who you're talking to, and you meet people where they are. Like, everybody has opportunities to grow, and just because you're in the front of the class teaching doesn't mean that you're not on a growth journey. Also, like, there's still different levels to it. So that is very true.
One of the things I love about Quantum Leap is that, I really look at it like, no, I'm just a facilitator. I'm here to ask questions because, I think in the beginning it was like, oh, let me impart my wisdom into these young adults and these 20-year-olds because I've mastered my life. And it's like, absolutely not. I mean, I started listening to the students, and they think really big. They think really
Yeah.
fast. They're full of courage, right? They don't really have so many of the bumps and bruises that you start to experience in life that may kind of caution how you move. And I think
Yeah.
that is the power in teaching, is really learning like I'm actually not here to tell you anything. I'm here to ask you questions so we can
Yes.
start a conversation.
Yes, and that's one thing I love about when Gary, teaches QL. He's like, listen, I'm not trying to convince you anything. What I'm trying to do is give you information, and we can have a conversation around, do you believe it or not? Like, I'm
Mhm.
not here to tell you, like, no, I'm gonna just present this to you, and I just want you to be open minded to receiving the information, and then have a conversation around it. And that's exactly, what we do. And that just made me think about it. So we have a lot of listeners that may not be in our KW ecosystem, that don't know what QL, Quantum Leap, is. Could you just explain to the people that's listening? Because a lot of the people that's listening, if you have young adults in your life, if you are a part of community groups, if you're a part of high schools, like, this is a program, this is something that, you know, Chase, me, a lot of other people, that we can bring to you all and provide this information that we're talking about.
Absolutely. So I think I was in a training class, and the best way that I heard it described was that QL is the bridge between education and real life. A lot of times, like we said, people, they grow up and they're like, we were never taught this in high school. Why am I just learning about this? Or, man, if I would have heard about this in my 20s, my life would be completely different. And the reason is because this is a course that it's like I said, it's not necessarily about telling it. It is asking the questions about, number one, who are you? What do you want to do? What do you want the people around you to do? What do you want your money to do? And I didn't realize how powerful purpose and personal mission was to not just our direction in life, but to our own personal confidence and having those conversations at an early age. And so, what Quantum Leap does, Quantum Leap is a workshop, it's an intensive where, like you said, young adults are being introduced into a new way of thinking. And like you said, to Gary's point, like, I'm just here to tell you my thoughts, but let's have a conversation around it. And if you don't believe it's true, what do you believe? Really slowing down the process and then guiding them through modules and chapters so that way they can do the real work of getting clarity in their life. Every time I teach Quantum Leap, when I talk to students, we recently taught it at Texas Southern University, which is a historically Black college here in Third Ward, Houston, Texas. And these are college students. Some of them were graduating seniors or rising seniors, and they were saying how much clarity this course brought for them to go into the next semester, go into the workforce, whatever it is they choose to do. And so I tell people, we talk about real estate, yet it's bigger than real estate. It's really about clarity and purpose and creating a game plan, giving you the tools so that way you can create a game plan for your own life. Not just what someone told you should be doing, like you said in the beginning, not falling into somebody else's dogma for what they have for your life.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there because you just went past something, and I'm not going to let you just go past that. That was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that QL was taught at a historically black college, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
absolutely.
No, you're not finna just say that and then keep going. No, no, we're not doing that. Like that is the first, and that opens the doors for more opportunities like that. So no, we're not just gonna just skim past that. Like, oh, that happens every day, no big deal. No, we're gonna make sure that starts happening more often. But I want to make sure that the listeners know that you facilitated that. You were a part of history of bringing that to for the first time ever. So I want to make sure that we give you your props for that and not just skim past that. Like no, we're not doing that. No way, no
Well,
way.
thank you. Thank you so much, Jesse. And like I said, I think it just goes back to your personal mission, being able to be able to give back to whoever your target audience is. I have a personal conviction about where we are, just as Black community and as it is with wealth building. And so to be able to get to that seed, like you said, not wait until 20 years have passed to start having those conversations. And what's exciting is that one of the things that Quantum Leap offers, the course, is an opportunity for you to get coaching afterwards. So these students are able to then go deeper and apply it to their own life with the help of a coach, someone like you or myself, and really get more clarity on it. From that workshop, we had 5 students that were rewarded coaching, and we had 1 student that bought a house. And these are things that are happening at 20 and 21 years old. And so it's just important for me to make sure you mentioned something about, sometimes we can stretch ourselves and then we kind of disconnect from the community. And there was a chapter in my life when I felt like that. I felt like I was really thriving in my career and I was really thriving in my speaking and hosting panels, but my audience wasn't in the room. The people that I said I was looking to help, the people that I said were a part of this mission, they were never in the room. And so when I took a step back and had to reevaluate, I was like, no, I have to get very intentional and hyper focused. So it's not just about me speaking, it's about who is in that audience. And that's really how Texas Southern University came about.
That's big. So that's another thing. So again, she just said something that I don't want you all to let go over your head. It's yes, you can do things. Yes, you can speak. Yes, you can teach. Yes, you can sell real estate. But it's about the people that you are impacting, the people whose lives you want to change. Like that's a big thing. You are clear on your avatar. And another part of that is like you're gonna teach, you're gonna help everybody, but your avatar of, like, okay, I know this is the lane that I really want to focus on because I know this lane really needs it and I know I can impact that lane.
Yeah,
So I like that
absolutely.
it's that clear vision of why you're doing what you're doing and making sure you're doing it to impact why you want to do it, right? It just goes together.
Absolutely.
Eh,
Absolutely. It's exciting. It's exciting work.
Yeah. And so let's talk. We can go a little bit deeper into that. I know when we were offline, getting ready to hop on, you were very big on talking about making sure people would burn out and things like that. So what is for you? What do you do? What is Chase's go to prevent burnout, or when burnout starts to pop up? Like, do you have a contingency plan in place to combat that?
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about like sometimes we think that, oh, this person has it figured out and perfection and things like that. I've been in real estate for 15 years. And during that time, I have had, extreme moments of stress that led to, breakdowns, hospitalization. And a lot of it was because I lacked a sense of counterbalance. Right. And so for uh, any person, I believe, that is in business, there's this underlying current about going harder, hitting faster, running stronger. And I was not counterbalancing that with anything else. Not with rest. I felt guilty for rest. I felt guilty for vacations. I felt guilty to not answer my phone. And I had a series of events that made me realize that if I don't change the way that I'm showing up in business, I'm not going to be able to have a business at all, right? Like I was going to have a mental breakdown or something else. And my degree is in psychology. I'm very passionate about mental health and wellness. And so for me, what I really had to learn how to do is, people talk about balance all the time. And I think that's a myth. I think that's a story, as they say. If you grow up black, you can't call it a lie. So I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna say I think it's a myth, this ideal of balance. Because if you look at, scales, even the only time scales are balanced is when there's nothing on them, right? And so in order for us to, have healthy lives, there's a constant shift and adjustment, and you get to decide what that is. Um, you train a lot, and so when it's time to go hard in the gym. You also know that you need rest days. So being aware of that and embracing that and learning how to celebrate the softer side, for me, the softer side of me, right? Like not finding my value into how exhausted I can make myself, and really seeing like, okay, that's why I said community for me is more than just posting closings. It's like, oh no, this is how I do my physical wellness. I go to the run club, or, you know, my spiritual wellness and yoga, or, just here I am out in Houston having fun in these streets, right? All of that is important. And I think that burnout is the consequence of when we don't honor all sides of you and taking breaks.
I love you brought that up, and because we do the QL, and we know this, that balance is BS. I'll say it for you. Balance is BS. There's no such thing as balance. There's always counterbalance, where there's going to be one area in our life that's going to be out of whack if we're focusing on this area,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And the one thing I want our listeners to know is you have to be okay with that and accept that. That's the only way you're going to be able to get through that without stressing out, without all the mental strain that come with it. Just accepting, like, oh no, for me to focus on my business right now, my personal life is going to be it's going to be a little bit out of balance. But we know we're not going to stay that much out of balance with that, but just know it's going to be a little bit out of balance. So I want people that's listening to know that you have to accept that, because it is what it is. We can't change that, right? But we have to
Yeah.
accept that there's going to be some point that we're going to be out of balance in one area, but make sure that there's a legit reason why you're doing it. If you're out of balance with your family, then damn it, it better be a real good reason why you're out of balance, not just to BS around. It's like you need to be very purposeful about that time away from family because we know we can't get time back. Money we can
Right.
get that back. Time we can't get back. So if you're going to be out of balance with your family, your key relationships, things like that, it better be worth it.
Absolutely, and it comes with clarity, right? It comes to clarity of like what are the commitments. There's a part that we
Yeah.
talk about where it's like, in your professional life, you may be out of whack for a long time, However, in your personal life, you may not want to be out of whack in a long time. And that's not saying, for example, with family, because there are levels of commitment, right? This is
Yeah.
saying that, okay, being observant, being an active observer of your life, and saying that number one, if I'm in this career, is this the career that I actually want to go long in, or is this something that someone told me I want to do? So now you invest a decade running in the wrong
Yeah.
direction because you knew at that interview that wasn't what you wanted to do. And in the same way with family or personal relationships, absolutely, if you're committed and in marriage, that's going to look like long periods of uncomfortability at times. There may be chapters like that, but if this is just somebody that you know I went to this group, I didn't like what they were about or what they didn't align with my values, you don't have to stay stuck in that either. So there's this counterbalance and knowing when to pivot, and knowing when it's time for you to go long and when it's required for you to, uh, pivot quickly.
And that made me think about quantum leap. And you talked about it earlier about we talk about who are you, who life are you living, and the question is, who life are you living, and how do you know? Like, are
Mhm.
you living your own life, or are you living the life that somebody else or society told you you should live? And to your point of saying, like, you knew that wasn't the career you wanted to take. You knew that wasn't the direction you want to go. How long are you going to stay there? And it's a quote that I'm finna butcher it, but it's like if you stay on the wrong bus for too long, it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna be a lot harder to get back where you need to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, but you're on the bus and you miss your stop. You damn well better get off that very next exit
Get off that
or
as soon as
stop
pull that chain. Absolutely. It's
because you won't be able
interesting.
to
A
get
friend
back.
posed a question, a hypothetical question, and they said, "Would you rather get $10,000 a month and not have to do anything, or would you rather get $100,000 a month and have to work 12 hours a day for 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, no breaks?" And she took a poll, and my answer was, "Oh, give me the 10,000 and not have to do anything." And we just kind of had this healthy conversation on, oh no, I would do that. I would stack and I would flip it and do all those things. But as I just shared in my experience, like, well, I know the effects of burnout and five
Yes.
12-hour days for 20 days or whatever that looks like, I may not make it to see the $100,000, right? And I thought
Mhm.
that is an example of what do you value, right? There's no wrong
Yes.
answer, but are you clear in what's important for me? I'm in a place in my life where quality time and friendship, family relationships, quality of life, being able to experience the sun, those are all things important to me. So when I hear something that's going to rob me of that time, that's not necessarily a win. So I think we get the opportunity to redefine what does a win look like for us. And is it only money? Is it only about money? Or is there more to that that you should, investigate and find out for yourself what that looks like?
And I wonder. Well, I don't want. I know it is, and that comes from us with experience in life, and I'm noticing that with a lot of people that I talk to, that it's starting to make that transition of hustle, hustle. I got to make money. I got to make money. To now, it's like I got to spend more time with my key relationships, the people I love, doing the things I love. Like you get to a certain point where you realize, like, hey, this time with people creating, having that quality of life that I'm supposed to have, that is more
Mhm.
important than me, like you said, working 5 12-hour days just to get that money. Because guess what? You're not gonna have time to see the people you love and do the things you love. So now you're just gonna have this money if you do make it that full month without losing it, or God
Yeah.
forbid something happened to you. you're not even going to get to experience and enjoy it because you're going to be so burnt out and mentally and physically over it that you're not even going to enjoy it. While Chase, you got your 10 and you're spending time with your key relationships, you're doing the things you love, you seeing the sun. It's that experience over what's it, experience over items or whatever the quote is.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we start realizing that at a certain point, like, no, this is more important than that.
Yeah, it's like Gary says, you're either in the picture or you're not. And I don't know. I think if you grow up and somebody's like, "Oh, where were you?" and they're like, "Oh, I was, getting that bag," you know, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's something that people think, when they're looking back. I thank Jesse for always getting the bag and missing out on moments in my life, right? Like that. I don't know of award speeches that go like that. So
Yeah.
that's why I say it's counterbalance. It's not saying that you're completely focused on experiences. And it's also saying that you're not so devoted to chasing money, and creating a life where you can start to attract it.
Yeah. And I tell people a lot. I'm like, when that time comes, because we're all walking around with the little sand clock over our head, the invisible one. When that time comes and people are giving their eulogy or their speech about you, they are not gonna say, "Man, that person worked 12-hour days. They was hustling. They was," no, they're gonna say, "Man, the way that person made me laugh, the times we spent together, you know, my favorite moment was when we were just sitting on the porch and we were having a drink and we was watching the sunset." That's what they're going to talk about. They're
Yeah.
not going to talk about that you work 12 hours a day every day. That
What's
doesn't
he,
matter to
Luther
them.
Vandross? He says the best things in life are free. Like,
Yeah.
there's some wisdom in these songs. And I think that he was on something there. It's a lot of times, what we say we're working hard for, not to diminish it, but a lot of times that's ego, feeling like we need to prove to ourselves that we're worthy again. Like, oh, I'll be respected if I have this weird if then sequence that ties our worth and our value into what we produce. And I think that it's worth it to explore that a little bit and find out why.
Yeah. Or it's us trying to prove other people wrong. Like, I'm going to do this because they say I can't. Like, at the end of the day, proving ourselves right or the people that believe in us and trust and love us, as long as they are good, don't worry about the people that doubt you, because you, like you say, now you're burning yourself out. You're going extra hard because you want to prove these people wrong. So just like changing the
Right.
way we think about it and our focus and key relationships, giving back, pouring into other people, like that is the life that I want to continue to live and the impact that I want to make. Right?
And that's why that mission is so important, because once you know what you need the money for, then you can actually, again, reverse engineer it and figure out how much you need. It's not a conversation of like, oh, money is bad, wealth is bad. No, money is good for the good it can do. If you don't know what
Yes.
you want to do with the money, then how do you know when to stop?
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta. That's why we're having these conversations at younger ages. With students when they're first starting to spread their wings, they start thinking about it, because maybe you don't need $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
I don't. That's my lifestyle. My lifestyle doesn't require that much, and there's nothing wrong if it does. But the clearer that you can get with why you're here and who you're here to serve, that you can fund that, and that's where that counterbalance comes from, because you'll be able to tell yourself, like, I don't have to go hard because the world says go hard. I can go hard because this is a means to funding my ease.
Yes. So for you all that's listening, what is your mission and your vision for your life? What are what are you looking to accomplish? And for you all that listened to the podcast, probably like 2 weeks ago, where I said you have to have a mission, vision, and goal for your life, not just your business, because then you can see if you should do this, if you shouldn't do that, because if it's not in alignment with your mission and vision, then if you have an easier time making decisions on what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
Hmm.
All right. All right. So Chase, we are coming up to the end. I know, we got to cut out. So there's two things I always ask my guests to do before we wrap up. The first thing is, if there's one piece of advice you can leave to our listeners, what would that be? And the second question I always ask is, if you can tell your younger self something, what would that be?
So the advice, I've shared it. Don't be afraid to be seen trying. So be the rough draft of your life.
Yes.
What I would tell my younger self is give yourself grace and be kind to yourself. And that, just like I said, it goes from a lot of, I think, that comparison and feeling like I was not where I was supposed to be, or that I was just making bad choices. I used to really struggle with the fear of making a bad choice. And, my mom told me, she was like, well, you're not banking on your ability to make the right choice. You're banking on your ability, that knowing that you have survived every choice that you've made. And so I think that give yourself, whoever's listening, give yourself grace and be kind to yourself, because as long as you keep your mental in check, you'll survive everything that comes your way.
And I was just going to say that that's a two-parter. Like, that goes with what you're telling your younger self and to our listeners right now. Like, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
So again, Chase, it was an honor. I really appreciate you, taking the time out, to rock with me, go deep into some things. Again, you are somebody that when I stepped into that arena, I looked up to see that there's somebody like me that making the impact and change of lives. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for leading by example. There's a lot of people that say, but you are somebody that backs up what you say, and that impacts a lot of people. So again, thank you for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Coach.
All right. And everybody, thanks for checking into another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast where we help you tap into your full potential. And I'll see you next week. Peace.